Thousands of protesters gathered in Washington, D.C. earlier today for the annual March for Life rally. Anti-abortion activists rallied on the National Mall in 20-degree weather and marched to the Supreme Court. According to reports, many in the crowd felt hopeful that the High Court would overturn the Roe v. Wade decision that legalized abortion across the country. Meanwhile, the event comes on the heels of Thursday's Supreme Court decision to reject a request from abortion providers to block Texas's 6-week abortion ban. In March, the Supreme Court is set to rule on a Mississippi law that bans abortions after 15 weeks. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is lending her voice in the fight to preserve Roe v. Wade and a woman's right to choose. In an exclusive video for Elle magazine, the vice president urged lawmakers to pass the Women's Health Protection Act.
The constitutional right of women to make decisions about their own bodies is not an abstract concept. It saves women's lives.
As the future of Roe v. Wade remains uncertain, this Saturday marks the 49th anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court decision that granted women in every state the right to an abortion. However, over the last year, anti-abortion activists have ramped up their efforts to overturn the ruling, with a record 106 legal restrictions being issued on abortions. Around the country, we see this happening consistently. Meanwhile, over in Mississippi, the case Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization is yet another attempt to implement abortion bans. Our next guest, Vangela M. Wade, is following the case very, very closely, and her organization is fighting to preserve women's access to their reproductive rights. I want to thank her for coming to the show and helping us unpack what's going on in Mississippi and everywhere else. Vangela, as we approach the anniversary of Roe v. Wade in the midst of an ongoing battle to change it, what does that say about the current political moment we are living in?
Thank you for asking. First of all, thank you for having me this evening. And that is the question is right on point. This is a very, toxic political atmosphere environment for women, particularly as it relates to a woman's right to choose whether or not she's going to bear a child. And we see that, it being played out across not only Mississippi, but also, of course, Texas, and most certainly in D.C. Right there with the Supreme Court, with this Dobbs v. Jackson sitting right there in their laps to decide on whether or not a woman has any control over her own body.
Now, Vangela, in Mississippi, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization is another pending case that aims to change abortion laws. Help me break down further what that means, not just for Jackson, but for the country writ large.
Right. Yes, it has a far-reaching, will have a far-reaching impact, because it's not just Mississippi where this will end, basically has the potential of ending abortion if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the states asking one to ban abortions after basically 15 weeks. And then, of course, if the court were to move even more stringently and just strike Roe v. Wade totally, allowing the states to determine whether or not women will be able to have abortion, will impact not only Mississippi, but states across the United States. And of course, the women that will have to bear this burden to bear children or to go. And what really bothers me with this is that we don't know a person's circumstances. And this is where the government in this particular situation should not be stepping in to a woman's right to make a decision about her own health care. Certainly abortion is essential, is an essential right for women. It's, since the Roe v. Wade was decided, it's been, women have had this right protected basically under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. It's a liberty right, a right to privacy, a right to the woman making the decision regarding her body.
Vangela, your organization, Mississippi Center for Justice, is supporting the Jackson Women's Health Organization in that legal case. Talk to me about the work that they do in the community and how important that work is to sustaining these rights and freedoms, particularly for people who are more vulnerable. As you said, the people whose stories and circumstances we may not understand.
Right, and that's exactly right. We, Mississippi Center for Justice, first of all, is a nonprofit public interest law firm that works to dismantle systemic injustice around racism, economics, and just social issues in Mississippi. And we are co-counsel on this Dobbs v. Jackson Healthcare Women's Health Organization, hoping and fighting to protect the rights of women. So we were involved at the lower court in Mississippi and, of course, at the Supreme Court as well. So, what we've done over the last about 18, 19 years at MCJ is to stand in the gap for people who are vulnerable, for people who are marginalized. And often, quite frankly, these are Black people, women and children, men, women, and children. We focus on issues that are related to housing, eviction, consumer, trying to protect our citizens from predatory lenders, certainly criminal justice issues that impact the African American community more so than others because of the many unjust laws, and certainly healthcare. We are fighting to expand Medicaid in Mississippi. So that takes me back to, again, the government being involved in a woman's right to choose. If politicians were that interested in life, we wouldn't have thousands of people in Mississippi without basic health care. So, it's very hypocritical to say that you're standing up for life of an unborn fetus when you won't stand up for the life of people who are working every day, school children who are trying to go to school, who are suffering without adequate health care, decent housing, living in poverty. So you tell me where the hypocrisy really is when it comes to politicians standing in the gap between a woman and her right to determine her own health care.
No, you make a great point. Sometimes it seems like the obsession with the lives of the unborn and the lives of the vulnerable child stops at the moment these children are conceived. These same people who are fighting to make these decisions for women aren't fighting for food, clothing, and shelter for these children. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. You make a great point. Anyway, stay right here, Vangela. I want to talk to you some more. We're going to continue this conversation right after the break. Everybody stay right here on Black News Tonight. We will continue to discuss the recent abortion bans and how they impact Black women and women of color. Welcome back to Black News Tonight. We continue our conversation on the abortion battles across the country with Vangela M. Wade, President and CEO at the Mississippi Center for Justice. Vangela, yesterday the Supreme Court announced that it will not weigh in on Texas abortion laws. Why would they make that decision, and what are the implications?
Mark, your assessment of that is as good as anyone's. Not sure why the court won't weigh in, not only in this particular instance, but also months ago. We know that it was sent back, to the lower court, where it's likely to stay in place, and it is effective as we speak. One, there's a 6 weeks ban on abortion. Basically they say at the heartbeat of a fetus, as opposed to the 24 weeks under Roe, which is said to be the viability date or range for a child, where a fetus can live outside of the womb. With what's really interesting about this Texas law is that it allows everyday citizen, whether it's the Uber driver, doctors, your neighbor down the street with a vendetta, to basically report anyone involved in an abortion, and to not only report abortions, but to report anyone who's involved, which also could be the Uber driver driving you to the appointment, or the doctor or anyone that's in that stream of activity or care, and it allows that private enforcement. So basically, it amounts to a witch hunt or to a bounty hunt, because you can. I think they are eligible for $10,000. So that just opens a Pandora's box. So and I can't see
Yeah.
how the Supreme Court or the Texas the Texas legislature could think that that was anything productive for the average citizen, whether it's the women who are seeking to exercise their rights or for people in the community to create this type of environment for people to live in.
It's like a surveillance state. I mean, it's quite stunning to hear. But again, the repercussions of this aren't limited to Texas. I mean, what does this mean nationwide?
Right. Well, for those states that are seeking to limit or to end abortion, this is but a stepping stone. Or what we see in many of these situations, including, we anticipate something like this in Mississippi, is that these become cookie cutter laws that are basically taken from one state to the next. And so just because it's now happening in Texas, people should not feel comfortable that it won't happen in their state, especially if their state is already, attempting to limit abortion or the right to abortion, or in effect has limited, to already. So it's something that could happen in a town, in a state near you.
Now, we've been talking about how these restrictive abortion laws have a devastating impact on communities, on all, childbearing people. But let's hone in just a little bit in the time we have left to talk about Black women and women of color. How will they be specifically or particularly impacted?
Right. That's a great question, Mark. And we can say that because of the other many systemic issues that Black women and families often live within, whether it's poverty or whether it's lack of health care, access to education, these restrictive abortion laws will impact them because it's going to limit them even more. We know that, for instance, in Mississippi, there's one abortion clinic for the entire state, and it's in the central part of the state, which means that if you live in North Mississippi, that's anywhere from 3.5 to 4 hours away from Jackson, and that's driving one way, or if you live in the Mississippi Delta, that could be 2 hours away, and the same thing from the Gulf Coast, another 2.5 to 3 hours. Transportation to exercise the right to get an abortion or even a consult for the abortion places undue burden on these women who may not have transportation, who may not have the money to take an Uber or rent a car, or can't take off work to even go to an appointment. So that's with one abortion clinic in the state. So can you imagine if there are no abortion clinics in the state and they're trying to go to other states, similar to what's happened to Texas and Oklahoma, trying to go to other states, taking off work. So what it's going to lead to, this undue burden, is I believe it's going to lead to people engaging in self-abortions as opposed that are unsafe, as opposed to having a doctor's care in managing this process. And I will say this as well. We know that there's a huge loss of healthcare providers in this country. I think the numbers are like maybe over 83 million healthcare providers are missing in this country. And we know that there are even a significant loss of OBGYNs who would provide the care for women with children if they were going to even bear the children. So the dynamics here are, again, very hypocritical, where the focus is put on what a person should be able to do with her own body, as opposed to making sure that there are services, that people have adequate health care, basic needs met. So, again, just a hypocritical situation, and the people who are most vulnerable are going to suffer the most. And in most cases, especially in your rural South, as is Mississippi and
gonna be
other,
us.
Texas, it's going to be Black women, and it's going to be their families. It's going to be the children that they're trying to raise right now. Again, I go back to my original statement that women know their circumstances. They know if they're living in poverty, if they have the economic stability to bring another child into a family. What's going to happen not only to the woman, but the children who are here and living, and she's attempting to make that family thrive.
That's exactly right. That's why we're going to stay vigilant on this. Vangela, thank you so much for joining us and having this incredibly important and urgent conversation.